So, what is really going on with the housing market? It seems like every single day you hear something different. One person says prices are crashing, another says they're about to go to the moon, and honestly, it's getting really hard to tell who's right. That's why today, we're gonna cut through all of that noise and do a deep dive into what's actually happening on the ground, right here in Utah. We're gonna look at two specific cities that tell a very interesting and honestly, a pretty concerning story about the entire market: South Jordan and West Valley City. These two areas, although very different, are showing some major red flags that you absolutely need to know about, whether you're thinking of buying, selling, or just trying to understand where your home value is headed. Now, I've been getting so many questions from you all, asking me, is now a good time to buy? Or should I sell before prices drop? And the truth is, the answer is complicated. It's not a simple yes or no. That's why we're going to break down the hard data. No fluff, no speculation, just the numbers. We'll look at sales volume, inventory levels, interest rates, and affordability. By the end of this video, you're going to have a much clearer picture of the pressures building up in the system. We're going to see how a once booming luxury market is now facing a harsh reality, and how a traditionally affordable area is being squeezed to its breaking point. So make sure to stick around, because what's happening in South Jordan and West Valley City could be a preview of what's to come for the rest of the state, and maybe even the rest of the country. We're going to get into all the details, we're going to look at the charts, and I'm going to give you my honest take on what I think is going to happen next. And as always, if you appreciate this sort of breakdown, it would mean the world to me if you took a second to demolish that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really does make a huge difference. Now let's get into it. Alright, let's start with South Jordan. For years this city has been the poster child for upscale trendy living in Utah. You had new construction everywhere, beautiful homes, great schools, and a real sense of prestige. It was the place everyone wanted to be, and prices reflected that demand, soaring to incredible heights. It felt like the party would never stop. But if you look at the data right now, you'll see that the music has slowed down dramatically, and the party might be winding down. The entire dynamic has shifted, and it's shifted fast. It's gone from a red-hot seller's market, where you'd have 20 offers on a property in a weekend, to something that looks a lot more like a buyer's market. The first major warning sign we're seeing is the massive drop in sales volume. We're talking about a decline of nearly 50% year over year. Think about that for a second. Half the number of homes are selling now compared to this time last year. That is not a small adjustment, that's a screeching halt. When you see a drop that significant, it tells you that the pool of qualified and willing buyers has shrunk dramatically. People are either priced out, spooked by the economy, or simply unwilling to pay the high prices combined with today's mortgage rates. This isn't just a seasonal dip, it's a fundamental change in market activity that you just can't ignore. Now when sales volume plummets like that, what happens next is almost inevitable. Inventory starts to pile up. Homes that would have been sold in a matter of days are now sitting on the market for weeks, sometimes even months. We're seeing inventory levels in South Jordan climb to heights we haven't seen in years. It's a simple case of supply and demand. The supply of homes for sale is increasing, while the demand from buyers is decreasing. This creates a massive imbalance, and sellers are starting to feel the pressure. Suddenly, they're not in the driver's seat anymore. They have to compete for the few buyers who are still out there. This is where things get really interesting for sellers. The days of just listing your home and watching the offers roll in are over. Now, sellers are having to make concessions. They're offering to buy down the buyer's interest rate. They're paying for closing costs, and most importantly, they are finally starting to cut their prices. We're seeing more and more price reductions across the board in South Jordan. It's a clear signal that sellers are realizing the market has turned. They understand that their home is no longer worth what their neighbor's home sold for 6 months ago. The power has officially shifted into the hands of the buyers, who have the luxury of choice and negotiation. A huge factor amplifying this problem in South Jordan is the reliance on jumbo loans. Because home prices got so high, many properties in the area require a mortgage that exceeds the conforming loan limits set by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. These jumbo loans are a whole different ballgame. They typically come with stricter lending requirements and, more importantly, higher interest rates. So not only are the home prices themselves incredibly high, but the cost to borrow the money to buy them is even more expensive than a standard loan. This creates a double whammy for potential buyers in the luxury market. Think about the math on that. You have a high-priced home, let's say over $1 million, which is not uncommon in South Jordan. Then you tack on a jumbo loan interest rate that's significantly higher than it was a year ago. The monthly payment becomes astronomical. It completely decimates the pool of eligible buyers who can actually afford that kind of monthly nut. It's a very small slice of the population to begin with, and that slice just got a whole lot smaller. This is why the high-end market is often the first to show cracks in a downturn. It's the most sensitive to interest rate hikes and changes in financial markets. So, what we're seeing in South Jordan is a perfect storm. A rapid decrease in sales, a rapid increase in inventory, and a financing structure with jumbo loans that makes it incredibly difficult for buyers to enter the market. It's a classic sign of a market top. The momentum has completely reversed. For anyone thinking of selling a home in this area, the writing is on the wall. The longer you wait, the more competition you're likely to have, and the more pressure you'll face on your price. It's a tough pill to swallow for many, but it's the reality of the numbers we're seeing right now. South Jordan is like the canary in the coal mine for the higher-end real estate market. Now, let's shift gears and head over to West Valley City. This situation is, in some ways, even more concerning because it affects a much broader segment of the population. West Valley has traditionally been one of the more affordable entry points into the Salt Lake County housing market. It's where first-time homebuyers, young families, and working-class people could find a place to call their own without being completely house-poor. It was the bedrock of affordability. But that foundation is now cracking under an immense amount of pressure, creating a severe affordability crisis for the very people who make the community run. Over the last few years, West Valley experienced an unprecedented and frankly unsustainable surge in home prices. As buyers got priced out of more expensive areas like Salt Lake City proper, Sandy and Draper, they flooded into West Valley, driving up demand and prices at a dizzying rate. Homes that were once valued at $250,000 suddenly shot up to $450,000 or even $500,000 in what felt like the blink of an eye. On paper, this looked like great news for existing homeowners who saw their net worth explode. But in reality, it was creating a dangerous bubble that was completely disconnected from local wage growth. The problem is, wages in West Valley did not double in that same period. The income of the average resident, the teacher, the nurse, the construction worker, did not keep pace with the meteoric rise in housing costs. This created a massive gap between what homes were selling for and what local residents could actually afford. For a while, this gap was papered over by historically low interest rates. When you could get a mortgage at 2.5% or 3%, you could stretch your budget and maybe, just maybe, afford that monthly payment on a newly expensive home. It was a stretch, but it was possible. But then, the Federal Reserve came in and pulled the rug out from under everyone. As interest rates doubled, going from 3% to 6% and even higher, that fragile affordability equation completely shattered. That monthly payment on a $500,000 home in West Valley went from being a stretch to being completely impossible for the median income family in the area. We're talking about an increase of hundreds, if not over $1,000 on the exact same priced home. This is the financial strain that is now crushing the local market. The demand from local buyers has evaporated, not because they don't want to buy, but because they, mathematically, cannot. This is the core of the affordability crisis in West Valley City. You have a population whose incomes can no longer support the price of housing in their own community. The outside demand from people moving from more expensive areas has also cooled off due to higher rates. So, who is left to buy these homes? This is the question that sellers are now facing. Just like in South Jordan, we're seeing inventory pile up and price cuts become more and more common. Sellers are chasing the market down, trying to find a price point where a buyer can actually get approved for a loan. The social and economic consequences of this are profound. When the people who work in a community can no longer afford to live there, it creates enormous problems. It leads to longer commutes, increased traffic, and difficulty for local businesses to find and retain employees. It hollows out the middle class and puts immense financial stress on families who are now forced to spend a dangerously high percentage of their income just on housing. This isn't just about real estate statistics. It's about the financial well-being of thousands of residents who are being squeezed from all sides. So while the story in South Jordan is about the froth coming off the top of the luxury market, the story in West Valley City is arguably more critical. It's about the very foundation of the housing market becoming unstable. It shows that the price appreciation we saw was not built on strong economic fundamentals, like wage growth, but on the temporary and artificial stimulant of cheap debt. Now that the cheap debt is gone, the market is being forced to reconcile with the reality of local incomes, and that reconciliation process is likely to be painful for anyone who bought at the peak. So, there you have it. It's a tale of two cities, but it's really one story about a market under serious pressure. In South Jordan, you have the high end getting hit by jumbo rates and a pullback from luxury buyers. In West Valley, you have the entry-level market getting crushed by an affordability crisis where local wages just can't keep up. These are not small, isolated issues. They are significant cracks appearing in the foundation of the Utah housing market, and honestly, it's a pattern we're seeing in different ways all across the country. The era of easy money and prices only go up is over, and we are now entering a period of price discovery, which is just a nice way of saying prices are trying to find a level where people can actually afford to buy again. So what should you do with this information? Well, for starters, don't panic. But you do need to be realistic. If you're a seller, you need to understand that the market of 6 months ago is gone. You have to price your home for the market we're in today, not the one you wish we were in. Be prepared to negotiate. If you're a buyer, this is a moment where you have more power and more leverage than you've had in years. You can take your time, you can negotiate on price, and you can ask for concessions. But you still have to be careful not to overextend yourself, because with rates this high, your monthly payment is no joke. The most important thing is to run the numbers and make a decision that's right for your own personal financial situation, not based on FOMO or trying to time the market perfectly. Ultimately, my take is that we're in for a period of stagnation and likely a slow, grinding correction downwards, especially in the areas that ran up the most. It's probably not going to be a 2008-style crash because lending standards are much better now, but a 10, 15, or even 20% correction in some of these overvalued zip codes is absolutely on the table. It has to happen to restore some semblance of affordability. So, with that said, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to smash the like button if you haven't already, subscribe for more updates, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.